it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual, and I share my asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. So subscribe and hit the bell icon. So today's episode, we're discussing, do asexuals like living with someone else? And if so, why? And if they don't like living with someone else, why? Let's discuss this topic. So, welcome to another episode of Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month, celebrating our diversity across the asexual spectrum and our differences within it. So, tonight I'm going to be reading from this Asexual Perspectives book. Don't forget, you can grab your copy on Amazon. So, yes, let's go and find out what different asexual perspectives are. So, what's your view on living with someone? I asked Robin. I think opinions differ on this, but personally, I would want to live with someone I can tolerate and feel comfortable with. So yeah, I think they do differ. Definitely. So, but yeah, if you can't even, it makes me laugh when Robin says tolerate. I mean, really, you should enjoy or like living with someone rather than tolerating them, in my opinion. But there you go. Philippa Duke's story about what's your view on living with someone? It would be really sweet to live with someone, but in my experience, people can be nightmares in terms of sharing responsibilities within the home. I'm going to live on my own very soon because I feel like I'm the only one I can rely on to take care of the place. Plus, it will be a safe haven just for me, and I don't want to tamper with that at this point in my life. I have to say, I do agree with Philippa on quite a lot of that. I enjoy living on my own. I find it is like a safe haven for me. It's like I can protect myself in my own home usually. I did have some horrible people living underneath me when I first moved in it. That was a nightmare. That was very scary. I mean, it was an abusive relationship with the couple downstairs, and that's why I don't actually think it's good to live with people a lot of the time, like if I have been in abusive relationships in the past, that has really put me off ever living with someone ever again. And I much prefer my own place. Um, and I think if you live by yourself and you pay your own bills, you take good care of yourself, it gives you a lot of strength. It's not always easy, it can be really difficult, but it gives you a lot of inner strength and peace that you can look after yourself. You're not reliant on anyone else. If you end up in a relationship that's not good for you and you're in a situation where you're living with someone and you need their half of the rent to pay to live there and you can't afford to move out on your own away from that person, then they're good for you. You're like trapped. And I was in that situation years ago, and it's a situation I never ever want to happen again. I think breakups are hard enough as well. And if you have a breakup with someone and it's a painful breakup and then you've got a divorce to go through, or you've got a living scenario to go through, moving all your stuff out and all that, it's just so much harder. Whereas if you split up with someone, if you live in separate places, it's much more of an easier clean break. Emotionally it's still hard, but you haven't got to worry about the money aspect, the physical, still living with them when you can't be with them anymore, and that type of thing. So I personally think living separately is really good. And I do like living on my own. Like, I don't see me in a relationship living with someone in the same flat as them. Like, if I lived in a block of flats, which I do at the moment, like I'm in a flat and there's 3 other flats here, and say someone moved next door and they had their own self-contained flat and they rented from a landlord, uh, then that would be fine because I wouldn't be responsible for their rent and stuff like that. However, if something went wrong, you could still end up having to be neighbours with them, and that's not very good either. So personally, I prefer separate places. But I think it's nice when you've got your own place, which it is a sanctuary. You've got only yourself to take care of. You've got no one else interfering. You've just got a lot more pleasure and joy in looking after you, and I think that's so important, especially if you're a sexual repulsed asexual, because you don't want to be having someone who's like going on at you about sex. Do you know what I mean? It's just so uncomfortable. Right, okay. What's your view on living with someone, Kenneth? Live with whoever. I'd move in with a partner, but only if I truly felt we were compatible. For no other reason that I don't for no other reason than I don't want to suddenly have bills I cannot afford myself. I don't care if people who are dating move in together. I think it's a good idea for people to live together before marriage. What if you learn you cannot live with them? They drive you crazy or it just causes too many issues. I totally 100% agree with that. I definitely do. I think that you should, if you're going to live together after marriage, I think you should definitely do it before marriage. If you're going to have sex after marriage, I definitely believe you should have sex before marriage. I personally think you should try everything out with that person that you're likely to ever do with them married as an unmarried person first, because if you're not compatible, that's it. If you're not kissing compatible, that's no good. If you're not relationship compatible, that's no good. If you're not sexually compatible, that's no good. And I've come across some guys, especially from different cultures and abroad, foreigners, and they will like say, "Oh, I'm not interested in sex," but then as soon as they get married, they are interested in sex because it was religious reasons they were abstaining from. They're not asexual. So that's really bad they do that, but it happens. And I do agree with that. I mean, I've lived without guy before, and I lived with a guy, and as soon as I started living with a guy, it always ended up not good. As because you can tell what they're truly like then, because you're like living and breathing with them day in, day out. I personally just don't like it. I think it is important to try before you buy, if you know what I mean. So if you're going to live with someone, then don't get married to them, live with them first, to see if you can get on with them. And before you commit to ever and ever, it's better to test that out if you want to live with someone. I personally love living on my own. Like, I'm much happier living on my own. So, yeah. But we're going to come on to more about what I think as well a bit later. So, yes. Let's find out what other people think. So, we are talking to, got my little bookmark here, to, let's see. Okay. Have we got someone here? I got all these bookmarks. All these bookmarks. Right. Let's go. What's your view on living with someone, David? If I was with someone who I was compatible with and we shared the same thoughts on it, I would happily live with someone. When I was younger and first considered my asexuality and what it might mean for the future, I came to the conclusion that I just have to find someone else like me, as I wanted the normal life of falling in love and living with somebody. So, yeah, I think it's important if you're asexual to find someone you're comfortable with. Like, as a personally sex repulsed asexual, I find it very difficult, the concept of a guy even staying over my home these days. Like, in a relationship, I think there probably would be some times in a long standing serious commit relationship where he might stay over, like say we watch some movies together. But I personally would like a living apart together relationship where you live in separate places but still committed 100% to each other. But a lot of the guys I come across, such as the foreign guys, they're like, "Oh, I just want to cuddle in bed and stroke your hair and fall asleep with you." But I get quite averse to that. Not in a romantic sense, but in the sense that I don't feel I can sleep next to a guy or in front of a guy these days. I'm not saying I can't. I think I could fall asleep on top of a bed if we're watching movies together without actually going to bed, not thinking about it. I think that's possible. But I think actually to think about, I need to go to sleep with you now, would be a lot more difficult for me. I've tried to do it in the past. It's very hard. I get very self-conscious. I find that having another person next to me is more self-conscious than comforting. I have fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain condition that affects the nerves and muscles of the body. So if I'm in bed with someone, it's really a guy, obviously, I'm not interested in women. It's very difficult because if they're anywhere near my pain points, it's like this, and I can't sleep properly, and I just don't like it, and I feel like really uncomfortable. And it's kind of like if I really loved the person, it'd be hard, but it's kind of like I need that space, physical space. So I think if you've got disabilities, health conditions, special needs, any of those, I think it makes it a lot harder to live with someone. Although some people think the opposite. They think it's easier to live with someone because that someone can help you out. But it doesn't always work out like that. Some people can use your disabilities and special needs against you, if you know what I mean. That's why it's important to find the right person. Henry's story, what's your view on living with someone? I would need to be a person with a very, very specific personality for me to actually want. Oh, sorry, not I thought Henry was saying they would need to be a specific personality. What they're saying is it would need to be a person with a very, very specific personality for me to actually want to live with them. The only real scenario I can imagine in which I live with someone is if I need financial help paying for an apartment or something down the line. Yeah, there's a lot of people in this book that are interested in marriage only for practical reasons. And to me, it's just not practical. I don't see it like sharing bills is all very well, but you're tied into a contract with that person then. And it's like if you don't get on with them, it's like hell. You know what I mean? So I just personally prefer to take care of myself, pay my own bills. Years ago, I didn't think I'd be able to do that, but nowadays I do that. And it's just so much better for me. I like the fact I don't have someone else expecting me to buy them stuff for their food. And as a guys usually end up eating a lot more than women in general, like their food bill would be like twice the price of mine. So if I'm living with someone, they're expecting me to pay like half the bill. It's like I'm paying for my own food and their food, but I'm paying for like another half, no, double. I'm paying double. So they would have double the amount of food I have usually, and therefore, or more expensive food, and therefore, like, I'm paying like not just for the equivalent of me again, but double that person, if that makes sense. So it's like paying triple if you live with someone. And, because different genders do tend to eat different amounts of food. Like, if you read labels of things, like you'll notice guys eat different amount of quantities of calories per day than women, for example. And so what I'm trying to say is you're going to spend a lot more money usually out on food for a guy than you are for a woman over the course of your life together. And so therefore, if the woman's paying for half the bill, she's actually paying for more than half, in the sense she's paying for him as well. Whereas if she was just paying the full amount for herself, who is paying the full amount for himself, her bill would usually be cheaper. So that's personally what I just don't like it. If someone comes to my house, even if they're a partner, which I haven't had a partner for quite a long time, then I expect them to bring their own food and drink over. And yeah, they could use my microwave or whatever, but I expect them to clean up after them. I don't want to be stressed and worried about getting their food and paying for their food. I'm on a strict budget. And at the end of the day, they can budget for themselves. I can budget for myself. I think because I've got an anxiety condition as well, I just find living separately so much better for that. If I live with someone, I can get very freaked out about things that wouldn't usually freak a person out. Like, for example, toilet rolls. If it gets down to like 3 toilet rolls, for example, I then start really mass panicking because I go to the toilet a lot. And if there's 3 toilet rolls left and then the stores are closing, like, and I have no way of getting more toilet rolls, I can start getting really freaked out. If I had 2 left, I would be even more freaked. I'll be like, "Oh my god." So, I think if you've got anything like disability, special health conditions, like I said, I think it's hard to live with someone, although people have disagreed with me on that and think, wow, they need help, so it's better for them to live with someone. Personally, I don't find that. I find it's much less stressful living on my own. It's much less anxiety inducing living on my own. I don't notice my anxiety as much living on my own. Like being with someone, even in a relationship, it draws attention to my anxiety and those difficulties with being with someone else. But when I live on my own, I'm that used to managing it that it doesn't really affect me much. when I'm dealing with myself. If I'm dealing with other people, I notice it more, but if I'm dealing with myself, it's like I make sure I get enough toilet rolls, and usually I'm stocked up with like a few packets of toilet rolls, like packets of 9 toilet rolls, you know what I'm saying? And, a wash powder, I'll get it so that I've got some in advance, and I'll be stocking up on certain things usually a lot of the time so I don't run out. And I'll get an extra of something just to make sure. And it's reassurance, and it's like safety measures and stuff. Yeah, some people might feel that's a bit erratic or a bit, but it makes me feel safe and secure. And at the end of the day, self love is all about making yourself feel protected, safe, secure, reassured. And you need to do whatever it takes to provide that for yourself. And when you have got an anxiety condition, it is a lot harder. It's a lot harder to do everyday things because you get overwhelmed a lot more easily. And little things that might not bother someone else can really bother me. So I'm a lot better than I used to be, I'd say. I've got used to a lot more kind of like surprises. But for example, the soundproofing that I've been trying to do with my best friend Andy, we've finished it now. It is quieter than it was. You can still hear road traffic, but it's quieter. But that was a new problem for me in my life as a single person living by myself. And it's quite daunting and shocking, and I got overwhelmed by it. But once I finally treated it like an adventure, and that I am very resourceful and I'm a born leader and had that type of attitude, then I was able to move forward. So always believe in yourself the most. So Andy P's story, I'd be happy to live with someone. I prize companionship, and I feel like living with someone is a good way to foster that. Way Walker's story. I have no problem living with a person who is not in my bed and enjoys silence. I had a great roommate once. I do love her dearly, but neither romantically nor sexually. She remains one of my dearest friends today, and she's one of 2 people who hear my troubles. We lived together 3 years, best years of my life so far. So yeah, I guess if you're with a best friend, it might be different. It might feel a lot better, but it can put strains on friendship as well. It can just cause a lot of issues, and it's not always easy. I find it quite difficult living with someone. I just don't really want that again. I find it a lot more safe and secure and protecting to live by myself and provide for myself. So yeah. Um wow. Let's find out what Samantha G thinks of living together or with someone. I want to live with people, but I prefer them to be friends as opposed to a romantic or sexual partner. That's interesting. There's quite a few aromantics, those who lack romantic attraction, asexuals in the world, and they tend to want to live with their friends because they value their friends more than a romantic relationship. A lot of them don't even want to be in a relationship. Therefore, they put much more value on friendships. So Juanita's story. I like the idea of living with someone, but I really like the idea of having separate bedrooms. My mum has a separate bedroom from her boyfriend, and they seem to be happy, so why not me? I read somewhere for people who are highly sensitive, which is me. I think I'm somewhere on the highly functioning spectrum of autism Asperger's. I find the social sphere overwhelming, and certainly the intimate sphere. I think I would function the best in a close relationship if I had lots of personal space and I choose when someone can enter that space. I do think that that is a good idea if you live with someone to have separate bedrooms. So I don't want to live with anyone, but if I did, I would like separate bedrooms so that at least you've got your own space, your own sanctuary. You can arrange things how you want it rather than having to do it all to please yourself as well as the other person. Keep factoring everything in of the other person. I think you can lose yourself in a relationship. I think you can lose yourself when living with someone. But if you do live in separate rooms, at least you've got a sanctuary to call at home your own. You've got some space for yourself to arrange things in the room how you want them, to have that coloured decor how you want it, and to feel like you again, and continuously. I think when you live together, you're making all the decisions together. It can be a lot harder to keep your own identity. And so personally for me, I don't want to live with someone, like I said earlier, I want a living apart together relationship. I don't feel I could share a bed with someone. I certainly not on a regular basis. I find it hard to sleep in front of a guy. I love the romantic side of it. I love the closeness and stuff, and I'm sure probably they would be sometimes where I'd end up with a guy staying over, cuddling me in bed, and maybe even falling asleep together. But I foresee that I'd be up like and basically wouldn't be able to sleep for a couple of hours. I guess at least in here compared to my other flats that I've had in the past, that at least I have like an area with an office downstairs with a chair. So if I got really bored up here with the person, sounds really bad, doesn't it? If I got really bored with the person, then I could go downstairs and do some work. But my toilet's up here anyway, so I keep disturbing them, so that wouldn't work very well, would it? But yeah, I tend to get bored really easily, and so I like to be doing stuff all the time, and I don't sit there watching TV. So I will watch movies with the person because I consider that doing something that I enjoy. But if they would just do mundane stuff, I'd be pretty bored, to be honest. And I don't want to live with someone again who watches sport and stuff on TV that I don't like. I don't have a TV license because I don't use a TV. I'm so happy to be without TV. I don't watch the news. It's deliberately designed to put the fear into you on purpose to manipulate people's views of the world and stuff like that. So it's really bad for the mind. And so I don't want to be in a situation where I'm living with someone who's watching stuff that's bad for their mind and I'm happen to be in the same room all the time as them and it's putting stuff in my mind. I'm very conscious when I go on dating apps of the type of programs people are watching. Like if they're very sexual, I think, well, I'm a sex repulsed asexual, that wouldn't be very good. And if they're watching stuff like death, murder, violence, horror, crime, there's loads of asexuals that like horror, by the way. Lots of people are compatible horror-wise with asexuals. I just hate it personally. But if I was living with someone and they were filling their life with stuff I hated, for me personally, then I'd be living in kind of a torture situation in my mind. So I think it's much better to live separately than you can see other people sometimes. You can arrange to have dates and quality time with that person. You can have people come and go as they please out of your own home. You can stay up till late, and do what you want when you want. I just think there's so many benefits to not living together rather than to living together. I don't feel comfortable living with someone else anymore. When guys say to me, "Oh, I'd love to live together," it's like, I'm not interested. I like living on my own. I genuinely do. And some of them just don't understand how I could do that in a relationship. They're like, "Oh, well, you want a friendship then?" I'm like, "Well, no, I don't kiss my friends. I'm not physically intimate, like sat on their legs, well, on their lap in between their legs, snogging them. I don't do that type of thing with my friends. I might do it in a relationship. I would do it in a relationship, but I'm not going to do it with my friends. And so I have very clear boundaries with friends and a relationship. And I personally just don't like it. I look back at my life and I was in a relationship in the past, a couple of long-term ones. When I lived with them, my life was better than when I lived with them, my life wasn't as good as when I didn't live with them. When I didn't live with them, my life was so much better. And since being single and on my own, I just find I'm much more independent. I'm much more into having my own space, my own place, going on my own time schedule, doing what I want when I want, going out, coming as I please. But to live with someone, I find very kind of restrictive, giving up a lot of freedom. And like I said, I can't share a bed with anyone usually. It just means I can't hardly sleep, and that's not healthy for me. I need to be able to have regular sleep, So I just find living separately much better. I feel that you can, if you've got like a anxiety condition like me, you can better take care of it yourself. You know what you want, you know what suits you, what helps you, and you can just go and get everything sorted and you don't have to worry about it. And you've only got yourself to worry about, not another person. When you've got another person to worry about as well, it's just too much really because you can't alter the other person or their life. They've got to change. And every situation experience we have, the person involved brings that perspective to it. So you and some other person can have a complete different perspective of the same thing, basically. And I think that's quite true when you live together sometimes as well. You can get different perceptions of how that arrangement is. But I just love living on my own. If I ever get into a relationship, I want to live in a part together relationship. This is where you live together, usually very near each other, but not in the same house. And That would be my ideal relationship. Someone I'd see probably twice a week. I wouldn't be able to see them all the time because of all the work I do for Asexuals, which I really love. And if I don't do my work, I get very stressed. But a couple of times a week would be nice. Between 3 maximum, I'd say. 1 every week at least, I'd say, 2 probably average. So yeah, I kind of like that type of relationship. I like it where the guy lives near me but not with me. And I can't see that changing. But you never know. But yeah, I'm quite averse to living together nowadays. But I think that's a good thing. I like living separately. I like being independent. I like having my own space and place. With my ex, he used to be 6'3" and I'm 5'4.5". So when we were together and lived separately, I did used to stay over his place. He did used to stay over mine. And then in his place, everything was really, because he was tall, everything was really high up. So I used to have to ask him to get something down. When it came to my place, because I'm short, my place actually was better suited back then to a shorter person. And so he used to bang his head on the ceiling and stuff. It was not nice banging your head, but I just find the whole thing quite amusing how his place was geared towards tall people and no good for me to reach places. And mine was geared towards short people, which meant bangs on heads if you didn't duck down. So yeah, if you got two people of quite different heights and values and beliefs and want different things in the sense of like home environments, better just have separate places. You can both have your own home environment and satisfy yourself in that way. So yeah, I personally don't like living with someone. I tried in the past and I'm happier now. What do you think anyway? Do you like living with someone? Do you think it's a good thing or not a good thing? I'd love to know. Post in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you haven't already. And grab a copy of Asexual Perspectives on Amazon. The Kindle edition is on offer at the moment. It's ending today, the 31st of July, for Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month. Type in Asexual Perspectives, go and grab a Kindle copy. It's really inexpensive, no excuse. And then you can look through all these different stories and have every question you've possibly got about asexuality in this book answered. Go and grab a copy now. See you soon on the next video live stream. Lots of love. Like I said, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Bye.